Patsy, who was going to give us a talk, has just come out of Southmead Hospital, and she's still rather confused. This was due to the fact that, poor dear, she fell downstairs and broke a bone in her arm. So, unfortunately, she cannot be with us this morning. But after a little discussion with the young Christopher Denman, him and I decided that we would concoct something. So Christopher will have something for you in about 10 minutes. But before that, I thought I would regale you with a few beau moments and little humorous asides which I have come across in the time I have been wandering around. And as friends will know, I love puns and terrible jokes. So be prepared at the moment to groan a little and apologising if it is not for you.
Right. Before Ray does that, I think I ought to say what the topic's going to be, because it's not about women and alcohol. So that if you want to go away and pick your toes or something, I shan't be offended. But I'm basically going to read some of George Fox's earliest epistles to friends and short ones, and after each one we'll perhaps have a bit of discussion. But if this doesn't appeal to you, I shan't be in the least bit offended if you go away. But anyway, enjoy Ray's jokes in the meantime. So
Righto. Man.
Ray.
Yes, friend.
Sorry to interrupt. I'm afraid I went away from my desktop and I didn't hear who has broken their arm.
Patsy.
Oh, no.
That's
I wasn't
why
here last week, so I didn't know who was speaking this week. Yeah.
That's why she's had to drop out today, because she's feeling very confused at the moment.
Okay.
And, she's just come out of Southmead. Poor dear fell downstairs. But the thing which worried her more than the fact that she had done this to herself was the fact of getting someone to look after her dog.
Oh.
Because her dog pines for her if she's not there. So she was desperately trying to get out of Southmead so she could come back home. And one of her friends spoke to me and said, that she's okay at the moment. They're looking after her, but she is rather confused at the moment and felt that she could not give her best today.
Wow. I wonder if she had a head injury from the fall. Wow.
The doctor
Anyway.
says not.
All the best.
Jenny.
I just wondered, she fell down the stairs, didn't she? Has anyone checked that to put anything in that makes it safer in future for her walking down the stairs? She needs a house assessment, and they do exist.
Yeah. I'll try and inquire, Jenny.
Right. We've done ours. We've changed the whole of the stairs, especially so that it's safe, and I've got rails all the way down I can hold on to.
Ah, there you go. She lives in a rented accommodation, I think, so
Oh,
have to
dear.
see the landlord. Mary.
You're muted, Mary.
Mary.
We should hear you in a minute, but we can't now. Nope.
No.
Oh,
She's waving at us.
don't forget what
They
you wanted
waving,
to
not
say.
breath.
It does matter.
Bottom right-hand corner on the big screen.
I think that means carry on. Right. Anyway, I should regale you for a little while, because I enjoy doing such. Psychiatrist said to his patient, "Have you been troubled lately with immoral thoughts?" The patient said, "No, I've quite enjoyed them."
That was a bit predictable.
I got one of those on an email the other night.
And of course, there's the director, Goldwyn Mayer, who was known for making amusing comments, and he said, "A verbal contract is not worth the paper it's printed on."
Yep.
I quite liked it. It's the old man who was at the doctor's and feeling frail and feelings of mortality were creeping in on him, and he said to the doctor, "Doctor, have I time to read War and Peace?" And the doctor looked up at him with a sigh and says, "Who has?" Yeah, they're very good. They're very good. Marilyn Monroe, who was once asked what she wore in bed. And she looked up and smiled and said, "Chanel number 9. There was a vicar bishop who used to go into class teaching children about God and preaching and things like this. So he decided one day that he would surprise the children. And he went in to the classroom in his full dress, all brightly coloured with a crozier and a mitre, and came in and stood at the front of the class and looked at the children and said, "Now, children, who am I?" And the little girl at the back put up a hand and she said yes. And she said, "A dreadful sinner?" That I like. It's, one that I heard at yearly meeting while I was standing, and as you'll know, the big lobby in Friend's house is quite large. At yearly meeting, it's just full of people all going hither and thither and all this type of thing. And there's a couple standing beside me. And I overheard this little bit of the conversation. And the woman had been chatting to this bloke. And she said, "Oh, so you live in Finsbury?" And he said, "Yeah." She said, "Have you lived there your whole life?" And he looked at her and smiled and said, "Not yet."
I like it.
A couple from that amazing wit who I always love is Groucho Marx, who, after spending an intolerable evening at a rather dreadful party, was leaving and said to the host, I've had a wonderful evening. This wasn't it." And the other one being that he was once going to join a club, And so he said, and he was told that he couldn't join this aforesaid club because he was Jewish. And he smiled and said, can my daughter go in the pool halfway up? Because she's only half Jewish. But, and the last one, which I have to read out because I liked it, you know, but it's something that a well-known dancer. This is, oh no, there's two. I tell this one and another one, and then I promise I'll stop. A well-known dancer, Isadora Duncan, suggested to Bernard Shaw that they should have a child together. Imagine, she said, a child with my body and your brain. Yes, replied Shaw, but suppose it has my body and your brain. Yes, I like that. And last one, I promise. Oscar Wilde was at a party and someone said to him, I passed your house the other day, Oscar. And Wilde looked at him and said, thank you very much. And after that, let us gamble through the darker parts of my brain. Christopher will now read something much more enlightening.
Rosie.
We have a hand up. We have a hand up.
Yes, I was just going to check that David was aware of what's going on.
Not yet, but I'm kind of getting the gist.
Yes,
I'm picking it up.
Our dear Patsy has had a fall and is unable to give her talk today.
No, I did know that. So,
okay.
Yeah.
Right.
And what is this? Everybody does their party piece or something?
No, thank God.
Thank God.
Yeah, that's what I was going to say.
Ray was doing the warm-up act.
Okay.
And we now have Christopher.
Right. And what I'm doing, and I've said that if anybody wants to go away and do something more interesting, I don't mind, is I'm going to read some of George Fox's earliest epistles to friends, and we'll have a chance for discussion between each one to say whether we
Prove or not.
they appeal to us or whether, you know, whatever. I've chosen shorter ones because he can go on and on and on. If you wish to read more, we do have 20th century reprinting of an 19th century book that published all his epistles in 2 volumes in the area meeting library. And they may have it at French as well, but I can't remember. And you can download it from the internet. So if you're interested in that, let me know. Just a tiny bit of background. All the letters I've selected, because I started flicking through from the beginning of the book, it covers the period 1650 to 1653, which was before any Quakers had come to Bristol. Now, George Fox was not the only one to write these pastoral epistles to friends. And one of the clergymen who wasn't that keen on friends was, saying, we won't read the letters of Paul and Jude in our meetings. But if we get a letter from George or Richard or Francis, we do read them. And I was thinking this morning, it's actually because we very much and they very much emphasize the spontaneity of ministry, but obviously they did feel moved to say things when they knew the message wasn't going to get there until a few days' time. But I'm not sure that means we can all go away and prepare our ministry on a Wednesday for Sunday morning. Anyway, the first one I'm going to start with, and the other thing is I do tend to, because I'm nervous, I tend to speak quickly. So, you know, just shout out, slow down if I'm going too fast for you. And I chose the first one because I think most of us will find most of this acceptable. Friends, I warn and charge you all to be faithful in the measure of the life of God which he hath given you, and watch over one another, that with that which is pure you may discern and have unity with that which is pure. And take heed of any lightness and forwardness, which is contrary to that which is pure, but in that wait and dwell, which doth that judge in particular and general, that the garden of the law may be dressed, and you in his wisdom preserved and kept. The mighty power of the Lord keep you all in his spirit, and with it up to himself, your hearts joined together. And see that you meet together, and be led together in the spirit, and in the power of the Lord, and that you keep out of all men's evil wills, which are contrary to the power and light. This is the counsel of the Lord to you. George Fox. Now, I also meant to say in my introduction, which I forgot because I didn't make any notes, was that having read quite a lot of these early pastoral epistles, they do, I think, read as if they were, you know, ministry and meeting, but I'm not sure because we don't tend to, we haven't got any records that early about what was being said. We have later on. Right. Well, before I go on to the next one, are there any comments on the first one that anybody, or was it too difficult? Was the language too difficult? No? Hattie.
I mean, it sounds like a sermon. And I don't know. He might have spoken like that, but he's telling you what to do, which sounds surprisingly un-Quakerly, really.
I would say, if anything, it sounds a lot like, it reminds me, you know, you could have said that was from the first epistle to the Colossians or something like that, and I would have thought, oh, right, you know, fine by me. So it was reminiscent of the epistles of the prophets.
Okay. Oh, Graham.
This is a question to Christopher or anybody else. Do we know how these epistles were distributed? I imagine they were aimed at all the existing groups of seekers which Fox had set up, but were they then copied out and taken by horseback or coach to be read at these groups?
Yes, well, as some were directed to particular meetings, but I think all of them tended to get copied and distributed round to other meetings. And I mean, at this time, it would have just been in the north of England because that's Jenny's phone.
I'm looking under my loudspeaker.
Yes, I'm gonna.
Put yourself on mute, Jenny.
I'll do that. Where is she?
Oh, she's
She finished, right?
Right.
Right.
Yeah, sorry about that. That's BT supposed to tell me that my contract has finished and it will be terminated, and I'm not with BT.
Yes, I think we've all had those calls. Anyway, to get back to my answer, are other people seeing me on speaker view? Because I've got David at present, and I'm not quite sure why.
Why have you got me? I'm not making much noise.
That's
Put yourself in gallery, and you'll feel less oppressed.
I'm not worried. I mean, I think you know it's better off, but we're supposed to be in speaker view so that the recording shows the speaker. But
All right.
that's not what you're getting, is it?
Well, there's a yellow line round you when you speak, like there's a yellow line round me now.
Oh, right. So you are seeing, because I see you in full screen when you speak, but
Yeah, well, that's because you've got your machine in speaker view. But if other people, excuse me, I'm
Yeah.
just speaking from if other people are in gallery view, then that's what they will get.
right. Okay. Well, I'm not worried about it because, you know, we're probably going to burn this recording anyway. Right. Yes. So they would send them round. Very little by carriage. It would have been friends did a great deal of walking. So they'd walked between groups. Some would have ridden, and they used the carriers who, you know, either used horses to transport stuff long distance, or occasionally wagons, but it was more horses because the roads were still not good enough. So they would send them with the carrier, and they distributed money that way as well. Right. Any more before I go on to the next one?
Can I ask? A
Yeah.
lot of people in those days rode horses with, but they themselves wore leather clothing. Surely they suffered from all sorts of sores from it. I know it's not relevant, but it is relevant because it was affecting their health, I would have thought.
I mean, I'm not sure that many people did wear leather, because George Fox was known because of his leather breeches. So they must have been something unusual for people to talk about them. But I may, it's a bit of social history I don't know the answer to, Jenny. So, right. Right. Well, the next one I've chosen is slightly longer. And I've chosen it slightly because I think you might like it less. And this one's actually got a heading, but whether it was written on in the first place or George Fox added it later, we don't know. It says, "To friends, to stand still in trouble and see the strength of the Lord. Friends, whatever you're addicted to, the tempter will come in that thing, and when he can trouble you, then he gets advantage over you, and you are gone. Stand still in that which is pure, after you see yourselves, and then mercy comes. After thou seest thy thoughts and temptations, do not think, but submit, and then power comes. Stand still in that which shows and discovers, and there but doth strength immediately come. And stand still in the light and submit to it, and the other will be hushed and gone, and then content comes. And when temptations and troubles appear, sink down in that which is pure, and all will be hushed and fly away. Your strength is to stand still after you see yourselves. Whatsoever you see yourselves addicted to, temptations, corruptions, uncleanliness, etc., then you think you shall never overcome. And earthly reason will tell you what you will lose. Hearken not to that, but stand still in the light that shows them to you, and then strength comes from the Lord and help contrary to your expectation. Then you grow up in peace, and no trouble shall move you. When your thoughts are out abroad, then troubles move you. But come to stay your minds upon that spirit which was before the letter. Here you learn to read the scriptures aright. If you do anything in your own wills, then you tempt God. But stand still in that power which brings peace. George Fox. You've all gone very quiet. Are you all asleep?
I wonder if he'd had addictions and whether he had found that way through.
Well, I think he did, because, he was, it was when he heard the still, a small voice saying, there is one, Christ Jesus, who can speak to thy condition. And their experience was that, the light within would show you your sins and then help you to overcome them. Whereas we don't tend to emphasize that at all nowadays. In fact, I think most friends wouldn't be aware of that.
We all have things which are a part of us which we disapprove of occasionally in more enlightened moments. But I think I can honestly say I have never yet, in the 70 years of my existence, never yet met anybody who was so pure they had no sins whatsoever, ever. Because, I don't think such a purely white person in the spiritual sense exists. And we are all on a journey towards such things, but I think we'd need a few lifetimes to gain such spiritual oneness.
I did actually give up smoking because I thought that it was at least a sign that I thought there was a God, a maker. And I also thought that instead of turning to a cigarette, I should actually try to find that in the spirit to help support me through life, not smoke. So in a way, I did a simple thing, but I don't think it's made me better. I think it's made me think a lot more.
Rosie?
Yes, I imagine part of that led to the idea of living a more simple lifestyle and plain dress and all of those things. So to reduce the kind of potential for some of those temptations. And it is interesting nowadays in the coronavirus pandemic, and of course the climate crisis, that people are coming around to those ideas again of living simply and sparing the earth and not being tempted by sparkly things and so on.
Just as a piece of information, early friends did believe that, if you turn to the light, that perfection was possible. But I think I would find with, modern knowledge about how our brains actually work, that's very difficult to consider as a possibility. But I mean, there are bits of the Bible they, took as, literal truth, and other bits, which other people take as literal truth, like the suggestion that we should have communion, in which they believe is totally spiritual and has got nothing to do with actually eating bread or drinking wine. But they did believe the bit in Matthew, which says, I think, be you perfect as your Father in heaven is perfect. And of course, William Penn did say in one of his much quoted passages that early friends were changed men themselves before they went out to change others. Right.
Yeah.
Sorry.
Sorry, yeah, Patty?
Somebody else wanted to speak as well.
Well,
Anyway,
yeah.
I think it's quite interesting, this idea of standing still in trouble, because if you think of CBT, which is cognitive behavior therapy, that is about looking at how your thinking processes happen and how your body feels, and therefore what leads you to act in certain ways that are not constructive. And the idea is that when you've had a period of observation about how you behave and feel, how you feel and then behave, you learn to stop, wait, interrupt yourself, think again. And that standing still, it just reminded me of this process that you learn to stop and think again.
Right, well, shall I move on to the next one I've chosen? I'm assuming somebody else, like Ray, is keeping a track of the time so that, and of course, any of you can leave at any time. It's not a problem. Right. The next one I've chosen is directed to friends in the ministry. There was amongst early friends, although anybody could minister, it was definitely felt to be something you were called to do, and it could very well lead to a different lifestyle than otherwise, because certainly a lot of them in the early days, all their life was taken up with ministry and traveling around the world. But as against that, with some people, it would happen for a short period and then stop. I think, terrible, I can't remember a name, but one of the friends who actually, one of the women friends who went and visited and spoke to the Sultan in Constantinople, Istanbul. She later in life, didn't do any more traveling at all. Whether she ministered in the local meeting, I don't know. Anyway, this one is to friends in the ministry. Stand up, you prophets of the Lord, for the truth upon the earth. Quench not your prophecy, neither heed them that despise it, but in that stand which brings you through to the end. Heed not the eyes of the world, you prophets of the Lord, but answer that in them all, which they have closed their eye to, that you may to them tell of things to come, answering that of God in them that shall remain. Keep ye you in your habitations, you sons of God, that over all the country you may reign. And you daughters to whom it is given to prophesy, keep within your own measure, seeing over that which is without, answering that of God in all. And despise not the prophecy, keep down that nature that would, which is the same as that is which acts contrary to that of God in them. Neither be lifted up in your openings and prophecies, lest you depart from that which is opened, and so come by the Son of God to be judged and bidden to depart as workers of iniquity. For a work of iniquity has gone from that which leads to the Son of God, who is the end of the prophets. Quench not the spirit, by which you may prove all things, and that which is good hold fast. For if the spirit be quenched, then light is put for darkness, and darkness for life, and evil is put for good, and good for evil. This is when the spirit is quenched, then cannot you try all things, then cannot you hold fast that which is good. For then you cannot see good when the spirit is quenched. But when the spirit is not quenched, then with the spirit you may see the good, to take the good, and the evil to shun. And this brings to put a difference between the precious and the vile, the profane and the holy, the clean and the unclean. The spirit is it that proves all things. George Fox.
Well, I find that very complicated, and I don't even think a second reading would help me to piece it together. It seems repetitive and difficult for me.
I also have always felt that we should be looking ourselves first before we ever judge anybody else. Because unless you walk every step of someone else's life, as Gandhi said, you will never know why they are what they are. And I found that it's not my duty to condemn someone because they do things I don't like.
Do I gather that generally friends found it difficult to grasp what he was saying, or just don't like it, or have been taken up into the seventh heaven or wherever, and
I was challenged to stick with that one.
Sorry, you were challenged to what?
Stick with it.
Yeah.
It reminds.
It was one of my more mischievous choices.
It reminds me of some of the Buddhist teachings that I was shown on film over Christmas when I went to see my housemate in a different place. And I thought, this is repetitive. I don't quite get it. It's calling on unreal stuff as far as I was concerned.
Yeah.
Graham.
Which increases my sympathy for the people Fox was preaching to for 2 or 3 hours at a time. I wonder how they stayed awake. And having ploughed through the whole of Fox's journal, I find the text almost exclusively generalizations, principles, all worthy stuff, but unlightened by any use of metaphor or parable or stories of actual experience to illustrate the principles he's getting across. For one who valued Christ's teaching so much, I think Fox might have learned a bit more about how Christ actually did it and hold the attention of his audience. Perhaps in person, he was more alive and charismatic, but from the text of his journal, he was an absolute bore.
Yes.
Graham, how did you get through his book? I'm sorry.
Yes. I mean, I've only read.
I was in a group doing a course, so we had to read it. And I value the experience, but my goodness, Fox was not a man I would like to live with. And in fact, of course, Margaret fell after marriage. They separated almost immediately because she went home very sensibly, and Fox went off on his travels. And that's how the marriage lasted, I think. Had they been confined to the same house, I don't think it would have been as harmonious. My question is, Christopher mentioned other people who were writing epistles. Were they all like this, or did they have a bit more life in them?
They're a bit more scattered. I will right. Yes, I know where there's a book with some, but whether it might be better. I'm just going to see if I can find one and do it quickly, but we'll
You're muted, Ray.
Yeah, there's a slightly apocryphal story. I think it's possibly apocryphal, but I'm not absolutely certain. Is that Margaret Fell came to Bristol and she was visiting friends, and 3 times she was visiting friends, and Fox had come down to be with them, and on the 3rd time they were there, she actually persuaded George that it would be a good idea for them to get married. So, because as friends know, Fox was married in Bristol. Penn was married in Bristol as well, So that Bristol at that time was kind of nearly a hotbed of Quakerism, and Fox had come down at that time. And as I said, the apocryphal bit about it was that her saying to George, the next time thou cometh to Bristol, we shall be wed.
He was told.
Was it on Valentine's Day?
No. Or leap year, isn't it? One of my sister-in-laws proposed to my brother then. Well, shall I give you the opening 2 lines of a letter from Richard Farnsworth to friends in 1657? Dearly beloved in the Lord, all be watchful and faithful against the enemy and adversary of your souls, that you may stand when you are tried. The Lord will try you like gold 7 times purified, and as you have had experience of God's love to you and care over you, when formerly you have been proved, know assuredly that he is the same, and mind that you be so to him, still loving and faithful to him and his truth, all you that in any measure have borne testimony to his name. Sorry, if I'd realized the second sentence was so long, I might have only given you the first. There are some
Can I say that I did a lot of reading of Erasmus in the past, and Erasmus knew of Quakerism, I'm sure, because he was tied up with many, many groups that were breaking away from the Catholic Church. And it was the discussion of the Lutheran religion at the time. And I'm sure they all have a bit of the truth, that the actual truth is something that we find individually with different issues, and nobody has all the truth. And that's what I believe, that we are seekers, we are looking, and maybe Fox also was a seeker looking and trying to actually pin down the most wonderful thing about religion and what it can do.
Right. Well, I think I've, mind you, you may decide. I was just looking at something in there which seems to me to be a lot more accessible than Fox was. So perhaps for another occasion, when of course you'll know to stay away in your arrange your dental appointments so that you can't come, I'll do another, but not looking at Fox.
To get a dental appointment, Christopher.
Well, I've got one for next. I've got one for next Wednesday. All you've got to do is have some trouble with your teeth. Anyway, I think to finish this one, I just thought mischief making. I'd like to read this as the last one. Friends, forsake the company of wild people and choose the company of sober men, and that will be creditable in the end. And choosing the company of wild and light people who delight in vain fashions and ill courses is dangerous and a bad report amongst sober people. For the eyes of such will be upon you, and if they see you are wild, you will come under their censure. Therefore, love, gravity, and soberness, and wisdom that does preserve. And perhaps I will just mention one of my favourite early Quaker pamphlets, which has the subtitle "Quakerism No Buggery." I think the point being that if somebody hasn't been to meeting for 3 months, can you be surprised if they have sex with their horse? So that's a lesson to us, I think, when we, are a bit fed up and, feel we might need a break. But goodness knows what it might lead to.
I think I would disagree with the friend who read that, basically because it is very easy and it makes us feel good to be among righteous people and to be among those who we know and who we understand and are with. But it's a lot harder to go outside of your comfort zone and to mix with those who don't have your views and do frequent the ale houses and the other places, and to talk with them is a little harder to do. But if in that time you get to some people and you get to become some understanding with them, I think that is what we're all about.
Sounds like a rationale for visiting the ale houses.
Yes.
Oh, you got me there.
Yeah. But yes, it made me think. Obviously, early Quakers had their own way of looking at the world, that was different from others. But, and they wanted to convert everybody and save everybody. But one doesn't get the feeling, well, in fact, one gets the opposite feeling of the opposite from Jesus, who, ate with publicans and sinners and, obviously enjoyed a good banquet. Perhaps that's where our sharing lunches come from.
Human.
Well, I think our time is up for the morning. Have we got something sensible next week, Ray? I think we have, haven't we? We've got Rosalind next week, so
yeah, we have.
Yes, next Friday it's me. Why I'm no longer a Holy Roman ?
Question mark. Yeah. I may have managed to put you off Quakerism completely, mightn't I?
No, that will interest me because my mother was a Catholic and all her side of the family were Irish Catholics.
Yes, well, it's interesting. My husband always referred to me as a Holy Roman because I used to introduce myself. He was Protestant and I was Catholic, and he'd say, "No, Catholic means worldwide and universal." But he said, "You're of the Holy Roman Church." So that stuck.
Yeah. Yes.
Anyway, I look forward to chatting.
Yes, lovely.
Right. That will be interesting.
Right. Anything else, friends, before I pull the plug?